You know what's really good about a fresh NHL season and especially training camp? It's when you start it out, whatever doom and gloom happens, like let's say the Quinn Hughes stuff with the Vancouver Canucks, it's going to hang over Vancouver for a while. Just reality. I think he's still going to stay. Some disagree with me, whatever. But there's going to be like doom and gloom, and whether you're going into the season positive or not, and you say, well, we don't know how many good young players our organization has, is the beginning of NHL training camp and preseason can completely change that. Now, I know you guys may have already seen a lot of these prospects and had your eye on them, but there's just a number of these guys that have really stood out for me, and this is how it flips so easily, where you have a really young player, you're like, man, that guy looks good, or man, that guy could be something. We're going to be talking about one of the prospects and some other news that I really like in this video, guys, but welcome back to Pixel Plus Hockey. If you can make sure to hit that subscribe button, it would be so greatly appreciated, and thank you so much to those that are already supporting me as well. It is very, very humbling. And here we have a very interesting article about this player who I really like. Vancouver Canucks announced the departure of top prospect after just 2 preseason games, Sawyer Munyo. And I think that this player might be pretty darn good. He really tends to have a very good defensive acumen. He actually stepped up his points in the past season. He was traded, I believe, midway through the season. But this is a player that I quite a bit like. And you could argue maybe he didn't necessarily have the best preseason, but this is still a promising player that I really do like, and here we have an interesting quote. Although Munyo has made major progress in his development, adding a lot more offense to his already strong defensive game, putting up 53 points in 63 games in his post-draft season, and had 45 points in 48 games last season, his first 2 games were less than stellar. Close quote. So I always want to tell people this, that while we get excited about players in preseason, that doesn't necessarily mean too much, right? Like, I think Braden Coots is going to be pretty good. I'm not bad naming Braden Coots. I always like to wait until the players are in regular season games. You know what I mean? Some players take a while to get warmed up. Some players just have a period of time where they're not very good in the preseason, right? And then you have some players that have unbelievable preseasons, and then they play 5 or 6 or 7 games in the NHL, and you're like, okay, wow, yeah, this guy's not ready for the pace of the NHL, right? So this doesn't really mean anything, and this is a player that, I'm not saying he's a Victor Mancini or Willander, but he is going to be, I think, a really good defensive prospect for the Vancouver Canucks going forward. And I'm going to preach patience on this player, okay? 3rd round pick. Let's not get it, he looked fine in preseason. He didn't look NHL good. Do you understand what I mean? That's the way that I would put it. He didn't look NHL good, and they sent him down to the AHL. I think he's going to play some NHL games this year. I think I wonder what is going to happen with Victor Mancini this year, especially. Some of the prospects that I like from the Vancouver Canucks, I'm interested to see how many games they actually play in the National Hockey League this year. Either way, I wanted to start this Vancouver Canucks video talking about this player, and I was just seeing some negativity about this player online, Munyo. And I'm telling you guys, this is a guy that, again, you gotta, when it comes to defensemen, you just have to take a little while, be patient, let them play in the American Hockey League, at least give him an amount of games in the NHL, and then if he sucks, you could say, okay, whatever, we don't like him anymore. But man, I just got a feeling about this player that I think he's actually going to be, like, pretty genuinely pretty decent. Like, he literally is, I'm not saying a top pair NHL defenseman, but maybe a proper number 4 with a little bit of offense. Do I think it's impossible that he plays a number 4 role, scores maybe 25 points, a good defensive guy, can play 19 minutes a night? I don't think that's impossible at all. Now, shifting gears, I want to talk about a couple of trade speculation and rumors that surround the Vancouver Canucks and apparently the Toronto Maple Leafs, which I find pretty interesting, but it actually makes a lot of sense because the Maple Leafs do have a number of players that are available and are decent. Now, they're not perfect players. They're not like top 6 elite players. But we are hearing that the Canucks definitely want to touch up their bottom 6, which, I mean, listen, if you're not going to, touch up your top 6, then you can touch up your bottom 6. But here we have a very interesting quote. David Pagnotta, I do think the Canucks are going to start looking around for a middle 6, bottom 6 type of forward. They started poking around, and I think they'll escalate that a little bit, close quote. quote. Now, we did hear more rumors that there are certain players that are still popping up around the Toronto Maple Leafs, for example. So, one player that we've talked about is Nick Robertson. I'm not a huge fan of Nick Robertson, but I think that the Vancouver Canucks could give him a greater opportunity. And maybe he makes me look silly and says, hey, Pixel Plus, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a huge fan of him, but think about it, man. The Vancouver Canucks could probably get him for not that much. Take a swing, just take a flyer on the guy and see what he could offer. Another player could be David Camp. Doesn't offer you much in the way of offense, but again, probably will come relatively cheap, can play center, and centers, even if they can't score that much, are always going to be a premium in the NHL. And here we have an interesting quote from this article that I very much agree with. For Vancouver, veteran forward David Camp is a clear standout as a realistic option when it comes to adding depth in their bottom six. The quote continues. Making $2.4 million a season, it is obvious option that the Maple Leafs they want to shed a contract. He is calm, presence, reliable defensive forward, and a steady contributor on the penalty kill that makes him expendable on the Maple Leafs, but is an enticing fit for Patrick Alvin, close quote. Let's not forget the Maple Leafs are actually pretty decent down the middle. Now, they have John Tavares, who's aging. They have Nick Waugh on their third line, who I really like as a third line center. So, again, there are some bottom six guys that the Maple Leafs absolutely probably will move. Now, the Maple Leafs can be a little bit patient here, which does give me a little bit of pause. If I'm looking at this from the Vancouver Canucks perspective, I more than likely wouldn't give up a lot for any of these players. Essentially, I would contact the Maple Leafs and just say, if you're willing a fourth round pick or something, fifth, just not a lot to get either of these players. Maybe you could give a fourth or a fifth up for Nick Robertson. Like I said, I'm saying this because I'm not a big Nick Robertson guy. Maybe you guys disagree with me. You see something in this player. I simply don't. But I want to be crystal clear on where I stand on any of these bottom six players, just so nobody's gets it confused before you guys jump in the comments. I'm only saying that I would get these players for the Canucks if you could get them for next to nothing and give up an asset that is not going to affect the Canucks, okay? Do you understand what I mean? I'm not trying to say, give up a first or second round pick for Nick Robertson. Even though he was drafted in the second round. I don't think that either of these players, you also could look at a Calle Jarnkrok. He isn't that far removed from a 20-goal season, and he's actually a very good defensive forward as well. Calle Jarnkrok is, I don't love him too much, but he hasn't scored in the playoffs that much for the Leafs, that's for damn sure. But again, he actually can bury the puck a little bit if he plays with talented players, and that might be a player that you could possibly get out of the Toronto Maple Leafs and have a bit of a resurgence. His name has popped up quite a bit in Toronto, so that's a possibility as well. Let's not forget that. Anyways, guys, I think I am going to leave this video here. If you could make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that, guys, and make sure to have a great day. Goodbye, guys.